Well, welcome back once again to the Empowered Business Show. I am so grateful to be here again and to be able to share with my good friend Hayden. Hayden, how are you today?
I'm doing really great today, David, and really looking forward to this show. We've had a great couple of weeks with some brilliant guests, so I'm looking forward to this today.
Yes, absolutely. We have had some great guests, and what we wanted to do today is actually do a little bit of a recap because the thing that we know is that as we listen to our guest stories, there were so many great takeaways that we wanted to make sure that you, as our audience, didn't miss some of the great things that we talked about. And so we're going to do a little bit of a recap today because it's really something that bears repeating, and we wanted just to pull out some of the things that our guests saw or talked about, so that we can just really bring them to our attention because they're really important. And so, with that in mind, let's just talk about first of all Kevin Peters, who was
Mm,
I guess 2 weeks ago now,
absolutely.
and Kevin brought us the conversation around bringing the operational excellence of an organization with the people focus of the operation and bringing those two together in what he called the magic in the middle. Hayden, I'd love to hear from you. Just really, what were some of your key takeaways from that conversation with Kevin, especially around that magic in the middle?
Yeah, I loved it. And just for those people watching, if you didn't get a chance to see the interview with Kevin, definitely go and check it out. It will be on the Empowered Living community. You can find it in the scroll
Yeah,
down the feed. Definitely worth checking out. Maybe the ambassadors can pop a link in there to that show as well, because it's
yeah,
definitely worth having a look at. But yeah, so the thing that stood out for me is you say that magic in the middle. I love that phrase he used of this combination of doing things really, really well, but
mm,
then really caring for your people in the process of doing it, being really
yeah,
human centered. And the thing that leapt out for me was the thing that really resonated was that Kevin's doing this in a highly consequential environment where he is having to deliver numbers consistently.
yeah,
So when you often think about, and I think when we talk about these really caring organizations, there's almost a feel like it's not having that kind of performance edge to it. And the bit that
mm,
really stood out for me was you can still do this in a consequential environment where you've got to hit numbers, but you
yeah,
can do it in that different way with that magic in the middle that Kevin referenced. So
hmm,
that really resonated with me. And I think it's a really important lesson for all of us as business leaders, which mean no matter what kind of pressure or situation we're in and what we have to deliver to satisfy our clients, to satisfy stakeholders, whoever it
hmm,
might be, shareholders, even in the case of a
yeah,
business like Kevin's, we can still choose how we're going to do it.
yeah,
And I think that's the thing that really resonated with me. We can make the choice as to whether we want to create a culture and a business that is really caring
yeah,
or not.
right.
So that was the thing that really, really struck home with me is that that real performance edge that ran through everything that Kevin was talking about.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. The thing that really struck me was the ability to really stick to values. And Kevin talked about really committing to values. And one thing that he talked about that I'm not sure if we talked about it enough, but he had the courage to actually be committed to those values so much so that he needed to remove some people
Mm,
from the business over a period of time because they didn't fit within that culture of people versus a process, and being able to focus on that magic in the middle. And I think that one of the things that struck out to me was that he also said something about connecting every decision that he made to his vision and to the
mm,
mission of the organization. And because of that, he had to have the courage to be able to, again, remove certain people that just didn't fit anymore,
yeah.
and also be able to commit to those values and really make hard decisions. And man, that is so hard as a business leader. Sometimes the right decision to make, and yet it still pains you. And I know, since I know Kevin personally, I know that there were a lot decisions that he had to make that were painful. He had worked with some of the people for a long time, and so sometimes those decisions are very painful.
Yeah, it's a great challenge though, because so often it's a bit of a misrepresentation of to be when you're in a caring company that you can't make tough decisions.
Right,
Decisions that ultimately then mean that somebody is no longer in your business.
right.
But that's not what a caring company is all about. A caring company is, if you do have to make some really hard decisions, the way you do it is done with
Yes,
care for the person. It doesn't mean
yes,
that everybody's going to get a free pass to do whatever they want whenever they want to in their business.
that's right.
There is still that need to perform, right? So there's
That's
that
right.
operational excellence.
Yeah,
But if I am going to have a conversation with you, that means that maybe you're not in the right place for you, and maybe we need to repurpose your career somewhere else.
right.
I'm going to do it in a way that leaves you feeling whole, feeling valued, feeling appreciated,
Hmm.
and prepared for the next role that you are then going to go and do, as opposed to what happens in too many organizations is people shy away from the conversation. It's then done in a really destructive way. And the
Yeah,
person who is let go in a way that diminishes their confidence, has a negative impact on their self-esteem, and
right.
hampers them in the next stage of their career.
Hmm.
So we can make
Yes.
those tough decisions, but we can do it with a care for the person we are having to have those decisions about, or the
Hmm.
impact of those decisions on the people, whether it be suppliers, customers, or colleagues. That
Yes,
really stood
yes.
out for me.
Yeah, for sure. And really, it really goes back to the vision, because as we look at the vision for an organization, sometimes that vision from where the organization is to where they want to go, there's an evolution there. And sometimes the people that are a part of that just aren't the right people, whether the right skill set, whether the right culture fit. And so there has to be this evolution and adaptation to that future vision that we have. And in doing so, we have to be able to change the skill sets, change the culture fits. But as you said, Hayden, it is so important to do it with humanity, with very caring processes in that regard. And so I think that's really an important point. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
The other thing that
go
really
ahead.
stood out for me was, so on that point alone, as you say, the vision evolves, or the business needs to evolve to fulfill the vision. What
Yeah.
I also loved about Kevin was where he had people who perhaps needed to develop the skills, he
Mm,
was willing to invest, and I know he's worked with yourself and others, willing to
yes.
invest in the development of those people so they could build the skills, so they could become the best versions of themselves, is what he talked about.
Yes.
So he's got this, I'm going to make some tough calls when I need to, but within that, I'm also going to invest in the team to give them the skills and the abilities so they can perform at their absolute best. And in that way, we're going to build the capability of the organization, which for me
Yeah.
is one of the fundamental things that every leader needs to do, is build the capability of the organization. And he showed how to do that in great style. So
Yeah. Yeah, for
I
sure.
love that kind of attitude that he had towards helping people grow.
And I think, Hayden, that's such a great point that I think I want to just make sure that the leaders who are watching get. And one thing he talked about is that the organization had to move from the leadership embracing the command and control style of leadership, which is a very old leadership style, to really embrace a new people centered and a developmental approach to leadership. And
Mm.
you're right. I mean, we're getting ready to move into the fourth cohort of what we call the emerging leader inner circle, where we help develop those individuals who are not in the executive leadership team, but it's actually the next tier of leaders. A lot of times they are first time people leaders. And what he recognized was that he had some really talented people that yet to just hadn't achieved every potential that he could see in them.
Mm.
And so we're in the middle of doing that. And I think that for every leader out there, you have to be able to look at your people and see where they could be and invest in them and
Yeah.
build your people so that you can invest in your company and that vision. Because if you have a lofty enough vision, you're going to need a team around you that's capable of having resilience and having tough conversations, building trust, and engaging in healthy conflict. All of those things that really take a company to that elite performance level.
Yeah, and again, what I really came up loud and clear from Kevin was he got that concept of the skills that had got him so far as a team weren't necessarily the skills that were going to take him to the next level.
Right.
And that's often the case as we're going through that evolution of the business. The skills that have got us so far aren't always the skills we need for tomorrow. And one of the things that I say to leaders I work with all the time is, if you're working on today, you're already too late.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? If you are working on today, if you're bogged down in the weeds of today, you're already too late, because the competition will be working on tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
And if we want to stay ahead of the game, we've got to be focusing to the future and thinking about the trajectory, right? Where the individuals that I've got in my leadership team, where are their skills? Can their skills take them? And how do I help them with that trajectory of developing them for what I'm going to need them to be able to do tomorrow?
Right.
And I love that ethos. And again, the work that you've done with the emerging leaders is testament to that ability to prepare people for the future. Right. And we saw the success through the results that Kevin and his business are creating, which is a phenomenal testament to the work he's done, and obviously some of the work that you've done as well, Brent.
Yeah, thank you. And you just touched on a topic, though, that I think is really key as well, that he talked about, and that is results. The financial results of the organization have been consistent. Not only have they been consistent, but they've continued to increase. And I think that is something that often gets missed, especially by a mindset that doesn't realize that the two things can be connected, that investing in our people and the increase in our profits, in the revenue, the key performance of our organization can really accelerate, not only be consistent, but accelerate and increase over time. And it's not going to be immediate. And that's the hard part for a lot of leaders. But as you talked about, it's the long game. It's working with our leaders now and developing our bench strength so that in next year, in the next year, and the next year, we're going to continue to grow into that vision that we have for our organization. And one of the things that I also heard from Kevin, and I know that a lot of organizations have been working on their culture, because culture is such a key component. Yeah. But one of the things that he talked about was really identifying behaviors that were leading to the success and to the success of their mission, and not just identifying them, putting them on the wall, putting them on a card or a sign, but actually talking about them in every startup meeting, at every start of every shift. And I think that's a real lesson for organizations everywhere, that if you want to live out your values, you've got to be able to put your behaviors that really live those values out into some articulated way, and then practice them, create some rituals around them.
Yeah, and we've talked many times. I know this is a big topic for you, around the importance of creating rituals around culture. And it was just such a pleasure to hear from somebody who actually had taken the theory and put it into practice. And I think we said that to Kevin as part of the interview. It was genuinely a joy to say somebody has taken the idea, the concept, and actually applied it in practice in their business, and created those rituals and routines, and then had the results, coming back to what you were sharing, to show for it. Right. So it shows that this stuff works if you're willing to commit to it. Yeah. But it's not like the golden bullet. It's not going to change your business overnight. It's going to take time and energy and commitment and effort and discipline to create the outcomes you want. And it's having that willingness to stick to your process. And again, that was something that Kevin really talked about. It was staying true to those values. We talked about it earlier. Over time, to give it the chance for it to create the performance outcomes that you were looking for.
Yeah.
rather than trying it once and thinking, okay, well, I've not noticed any difference, I'm going to go and do something or go back to what it used to be, which is what happens in so many organizations where there's a new initiative, we try it for a month and then we go back to doing what we've always done.
Right.
You've got to stick with it. You've got to give it time, and you've got to allow that process to that continuous focus to create the outcomes that you were looking for in the first place.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings us on to, I guess, talking about Peter last week.
Peter,
So,
yes, absolutely.
Because the conversation we had with Peter, which was another great entrepreneur who's got some really cool tools for business owners, but he was talking about having a tool and a service that would enable business owners to stay focused on what really mattered.
Right.
So then what were you talk to me a little bit about how you saw that connection between what Peter spoke about and obviously what we've been talking about with Kevin.
Yeah, I really thought it was a great tool and a great concept too, to marry the mission and the vision to keeping the key performance indicators present and visible, so that everybody knew where everyone in the organization was in relation to their goals. And then I think the other thing, and this is, you and I were talking before we came on the air, I think this is an area that you and I both really enjoyed, was that the U driver. I had to look at my notes. The U driver. That was so important, and is so important to be able to incorporate those individual goals of our teammates, our individual goals of our leaders, so that we don't achieve a goal at the expense of our people. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest links that I saw between what Peter was talking about and what Kevin was sharing as well. I know that was important to you as well.
Yeah, 100%. And Peter was talking about Catapult AI, which was the business that he runs, and having this facility, this service that they had, which was to bring out and shine a light on the things that matter in the business.
Yeah.
And bring that real clarity. You talked about creating a dashboard of indicators that are really super important to the success of the business. So you keep that focus. Again, the performance thread was common between the two conversations. We have to perform. This isn't it's not a charitable environment. We have to create this high performance culture. Mm-hmm. But within that, the humanity then came through, which was, if we're going to create indicators, well, let's put one of them as being this U driver. Yeah. And that really taps into who you are as a business owner or a leader within the business. Mm-hmm. That enables you to stay focused on yourself as well as focusing on the business performance. Yeah. So you can then be kind of well within the company. For me, it was a real well-being focus within there. That means I can thrive as an individual in a thriving organization.
Right.
Rather than what again happens in most businesses, which is the business results take precedent, often at the expense of our own well-being. Mm-hmm. We've heard so many people suffer from burnout, suffer from stress, suffer from the pressures of having to deliver a quarterly number.
Yeah.
And in that, they lose sight of their own lives, the work-life balance, their ability to enjoy their lives or enjoy vacations or anything else that they want to do, because they are being pushed so hard by the business. So I love the fact that he brought that front and center and was right in your eye line of said, okay, yes, we've got all of these things we need to work on, but one of them is working on our own well-being and the things that we care most about. So I love the concept that sat behind it, because it really felt like it was consistent with the theme that came from the conversation with Kevin.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think that one of the things that struck me as well with the Catapult AI tool was the fact that he was able to create a tool that gives that dashboard. It was kind of like a dashboard, so that just like if you're in your car, I'm a pilot, so in the airplane, you have a dashboard, you have a cockpit of indicators, and those indicators then can let us know whether it's our personal goals, how are we doing in relation to our personal goals, how are we doing in relation to our strategic goals, and really accomplishing what we set out to accomplish. Are we ahead? Are we behind? Are we off track? Mm-hmm. And that dashboard then gives the individual leader as well as the entire company visibility. And I think with that visibility, then there's an element of accountability. And I think that too, any caring organization is going to have an element of accountability because we have a focus on results. And if we have a focus on results, then we have to be accountable for our actions, for our inactions, and not in a way that I think most people think of accountability. I think a lot of people, think of accountability as, well, you didn't do this, and so why not? And from a condemnation component, as opposed to, well, what got in the way? As an organization, do we need to remove some hurdles? Do we need to open up, some kind of a resource that we can allow that will help you to achieve that goal? And so I think that accountability is something else that that Peter's tool really brings to an organization as they manage their strategic initiatives.
Yeah, and what kind of just going through my head as you were going there was just this concept of the growth mindset, because in the growth mindset, we need that feedback. We need the indicators that say, David, you're doing a great job, you're on track and everything's going really well. Or David, actually, there's some areas that could be improved here.
Right.
And let's get really focused on what those things we could do differently or do better.
Yep.
So we can learn from the things we're doing. We can gather the information and then take some choices about what we do next to develop. So it shouldn't be, I'm absolutely with you. I think high performance cultures need accountability at their heart, but that accountability shouldn't be a threat.
Right.
It should be something we embrace as helping us to really see into our own role within the performance of the business, the way that we're contributing, the fact that we do something and it has a consequence, it has an impact on others, to see that causality that happens in organizations. And then I know that I've got a purpose. I know that the work I'm doing has meaning, because if I don't see any of that, I'm just doing a meaningless job. I might, be expected to deliver a number at the end of the week, but if I don't know what that number means, or I don't have any accountability for what happens if I don't hit that number, then it just becomes the proverbial sausage factory where we're just churning out something for the sake of doing it rather than having purpose. So I think when we're in a growth-minded business, with growth-minded leaders, we can have a really healthy level of accountability that pushes us to want to be our best through learning from the things that don't always go to plan, because not everything's going to be a massive success every time.
Right.
And we use that to become bigger, to grow, to build that capability and think into the future. So I agree with you. I love the idea of that. And I love the shout out from you, which says accountability doesn't have to be a thing to fear. It should be something we all embrace.
Yeah, for sure. And just commenting a little bit on your growth mindset. I think, first of all, I think you're exactly right. I think being in an organization with a growth mindset really requires a leader who has a growth mindset. And I know that both Peter and Kevin do have a growth mindset. And it also requires a level of vulnerability. If one of the things that I recall back to what Kevin said was he initiated this program called Wouldn't It Be Great If? And it allowed people to come to him with improvement ideas. And the fact that he has a growth mindset means that he's open to hearing those. And I think that any leader who has a growth mindset has to be open to those ideas. And even if they are, wild, crazy ideas, the people that we have in our organization are smart people. We selected them for a reason. And so we need to listen to them, and we need to be vulnerable enough to be able to say, I don't have all the answers. I need my team. And so I think that is another element that both Peter and Kevin synergistically together really brought to the audience.
Yeah, and that vulnerability stretches to, actually, I might make some decisions that aren't the best decisions, and I want to be challenged on them. I want people to ask me the reasons why something's happening, because in that questioning, if I embrace it, I'm going to learn something as well, because actually I'm going to have to think through, well, why did I make that decision?
Right.
And if we are creating an environment where we don't welcome that challenge, where we remove that challenge from us, we then start to create an echo chamber where everybody's just nodding and saying yes to us, rather than actually, and then we just, that ends up in not good places, because we'll then just believe our own press, and we start that downward cycle. So create an environment where there is that willingness to be vulnerable, to invite the challenge, to have the what if questions, and have that access to people to ask you why things happen in the way they do, are all great attributes that we can take from both of our guests, because they both demonstrated that through the conversations that they shared with us over the last couple of weeks, which has been really powerful.
Yes, for sure. And I think just the demonstration, the thing that I think that just kind of is important for our audience to remember is that these are both real life business owners, business leaders who are making a difference. And it's really important, I think, to be able to see that. And so that's why we want to be able to bring these real examples of people who are exhibiting, living, and building an empowered business. And I think that when we can see that, it's going to help us to see and imagine the possibilities that we can have for our own business. And so we hope that that's something that is super valuable to you who are listening to us today. So Hayden, any wrapping up thoughts or final thoughts from you on just what you heard from Peter and Kevin?
I just want to come right the way back to where we started with your summary of the conversation with Kevin, which was this magic in the middle, because I see it as this almost like the golden triangle. You've got the people side, you've got the operational excellence, and then you've got results forming the sides of a triangle. And when those three things are in balance, I think you just create great organizations. I think you create great businesses where people love to turn up and be their best selves. Right. That for me is an empowered business. When you get those three elements right, and that golden triangle really is working in balance, it just screams to me empowered business, which is exactly what we're advocating and wanting to create. So
for sure, that
would be my main call out, is that magic in the middle when you create those three in balance together.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better, my friend. I think that is really a great place to land for today, because we have had some great guests over the past couple of weeks. And if you are watching this and you haven't seen those, as Hayden said, go back into the archives on the page, and perhaps our ambassadors would be kind enough to put the link to those videos for both Peter at catapult.ai and then also Kevin Peters. That those two episodes would be really great for you to go back and watch and just really see the real life examples of living the empowered business. And also, I might just share too, real quickly, because it just came into my mind, is that Hayden and I and Karen Turner, our colleague, also created a program called the Empowered Business Blueprint. And it is still available if you are interested. We have it's a video course to be able to share those key components of team development, of culture development, and of habits and leadership and mindset development. And so we can also put the links of that below as well. But I wanted to make sure that I shared that with everyone as well. So.
Yeah, it's a great show, because that's exactly what Kevin had put into place in his business, was the things that we were talking about. So we talked about the theory into practice.
Yeah.
Get hold of that blueprint, and it will give you all the things you need to start creating a business that is empowered, like we've been sharing with these two great business leaders we've spoken to.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that we have on tap in a couple of weeks another business leader and a business leader, and looking forward to having that leader on the show as well. So, and next week, I think what we're going to be able to do is talk about something that's very contemporary and very important, and how it relates to building an empowered business. So I'll leave it at that for right now, but I want to make sure that everybody tunes back in. So Thanks so much for watching us. And thank you, Hayden, for your thoughts.